everyone, I'm Karma Hickman, an associate solicitor in the immigration team at Bindmans. This is the second in our two-part episode of Immigration Unpacked with my colleague Natalie Loader, who's a partner in our team. In the first part of the episode, we looked back at what had happened in 2025, and this time we're looking ahead to possible, probable, and some, I don't know, theoretical developments in the year ahead. Obviously, we don't have a crystal ball, but we do know some things are on the horizon. So, first change, it's already happened
already. It's happened already, yes.
Oh, well, not yesterday when you're listening to this, but it was the 8th of January, I think, wasn't it?
Yes.
And that was the increase, or you tell me, what was it?
So there were changes in the English language level required for certain applications. You know, in my practice, the most major one is for skilled workers. So the English language level that you need to show if you want to have a skilled worker visa is level B1 of the Common European Framework of Reference, which is a sort of lower intermediate level. That's now been increased to B2, which is a sort of upper intermediate level. To be fair, I don't think there's a massive difference in the level, but if you are taking
headlined it as you need A-level English, but
yeah,
I mean, most people I know who've passed the B1, some of them have just gone away and passed the C1, which is 2 up without.
yeah. So most people get when they take the B1 test, they get a higher level anyway. They get C1, they might get C2, but some people might get B2, some people might get B1. Thing is, you've got to pass it at B2 level now in each discipline. So you take a test in speaking, listening, reading, and writing, and you've got to get B2, a B2 grade for each competency. So if you get, C1 for 3 of them, but then you get B1 for 1 of them, then you don't have a B2 test, unfortunately. It's not averaged out, So that change came in on the 8th of January. So any application which went in on the 7th of January or before, you could still rely on a B1 test. From the 8th of January onwards, you must have B2. So I suppose it's a little bit late to tell people, but, check any submitted applications if you...
The application's not been decided.
Yeah.
And that was a skilled worker. And then the big consultation we've got is the earned settlement consultation. So that's the government's consultation to increase the period of time it takes for people to qualify for settlement. And this is, I mean, I can't imagine, well, actually the asylum stuff as well. Yeah, I say that. There's just massive news all around. But I think this is without a doubt the biggest shake-up in well over a decade to how people qualify for indefinite leave. The situation at the moment is in November, the government published a paper outlining what it intended to do. And it said it's taking responses from the general public, from lawyers, from people who work in the sector to see how everyone will be affected by these proposed changes. It's not consulting on everything. It said, we don't care what you have to say about some of it. We've decided we're going to do it. All we're going to consult on is certain points. But the deadline for that consultation is February. It's 12th of February. So let's talk just a little bit. Again, I did do a whole session with another colleague, Tanya, when the paper was published, like end of November, early December. But let's have a quick run through of those changes, Natalie.
Yeah. So I suppose it's a huge consultation just because it impacts basically everyone in the UK on a visa, right? And it's sometimes doubling, or maybe there's no guarantee actually that people are going to be able to get indefinite leave to remain, which is permanent residency. So the consultation ends on the 12th of February. If the government want to have some of these new rules put in place by April, so the beginning of the new financial year, then that means they've only got a couple of weeks to go through this massive consultation and then put their proposed changes before Parliament for it to come into force in April. So
just to interrupt, we've had this April put forward as a possibility, but we don't actually know.
We don't know if they're going to be able to make the changes by then. Yeah, just because it is going to be the biggest consultation I think that we've had in immigration for a long time. Yeah.
So they're introducing this qualifying baseline period of 10 years.
10 years.
So the idea is that the starting position is everyone needs 10 years to get to indefinite leave.
Yeah.
But then they will make it harder for some people and lower it for others. And just before we talk a bit about that, I just want to say that you have to now be in what is called a route to settlement. So until now, you could combine time spent in the UK and a multitude of different visas, including visas such as a student visa that aren't meant to lead to indefinite leave. And after 10 years, you would qualify for indefinite leave. The nature of these changes the government's proposing means that that route will be abolished. So that's now gone.
Yes,
And
or
people
we
will
think it will
have,
go. Yeah.
well, I think they've said it will
Yeah.
go in the
Yeah.
paper. So what we're looking at now is this baseline qualifying period if you are in a route to settlement. And then can you tell us a bit, Natalie, about when that will be increased, that threshold, and when you might be able to qualify in
Yeah.
less than 10 years?
So it's going to depend on the route that you're in. Most visa routes will allow you, if it's a route to settlement, will allow you to settle in the UK, so get permanent residency after 5 years.
But
That's
not student
looking, yeah,
visas.
not students, not anyone on a temporary visa. If you had temporary visas in the UK, possibly you'd be working towards the 10-year rule application, which we think is now abolished, or will be once the new rules come into play. So if you're on a visa route that allows you to settle in the UK, then usually it's going to be 5 years. But now the new rules, or what the government are proposing, is that it's going to be 10 years to get yourself to indefinite leave to remain. There will be this concept of earned settlement, which means that if you meet certain criteria, you could lower that 10 years down to perhaps 5 years, and in some cases down to 3 years even. So what we know, or what the government have told us they want to do, is that there will be fast track settlement for skilled workers if they are earning £50,270 or above per year. You might also qualify for fast track if you're on a health and social care visa. So if you're a doctor or if you're a nurse, if you're a global talent. So these are people who are sort of recognized as leaders in their industry. If you're on a global talent visa or an innovator founder visa, then you'll be on a fast track route. Some global talents and innovator founders anyway can get ILR more quickly now anyway after 3 years. And so it's the Home Office really want to have that kind of highly skilled migrant in the UK. So I think there will be more flexible rules, and they'll still be able to do 3 years in the UK.
That's for the reductions.
That's for the reduction, yeah.
Some people will see, oh, and I should add in there that they have said they're not going to change the period for the family members of British citizens. So if you're on a spouse visa and it's 5 years to indefinite leave, you will stay on 5 years indefinitely to indefinite leave. So that's, some people will qualify faster. What about people for whom it will take longer? Because they said they're going to make it longer than 10 years for some people.
Yeah. So if you're, for instance, a skilled worker and you're working in a job which is below RQF level 6, so say it's a temporary shortage list role, or say you had your visa in place before the changes last year in July, where they increased the skill level, then you may be looking at a 15-year route to indefinite leave to remain. So it's tripling it, not 5 years, but 15 years. And then I think they've also said that if you've had any state benefits, that could mean you're looking at a 20-year route to indefinite leave to remain. So, it's really, really drastic changes. It's really increasing the length of time that people need to remain in the immigration system. So it's massive changes for how we consider migrants in the UK, and when we consider that they have, basically thrown in their lot with the UK, and this is where they want to be permanently, and this is where they should be able to settle.
There's one other point on that earned settlement that I didn't actually mention, which is that the government is going to expect everyone to have earned at least £12,570 in the last either 3 years or 5 years before they qualify for settlement. That's this concept of earned settlement, and it's going to affect lots of people.
Exactly.
Mainly people on lower salaries or people on maternity leave who,
you'll be judged on character. So whether you're someone that should be allowed settlement. So if you've got criminal convictions, then that is definitely going to impact your application or your ability to apply. You're going to have to show integration into the UK. How we show this, I'm not sure, but they've mentioned volunteer work, for instance. That could be something that
I think the volunteer work might be about reducing the amount of time that it takes to qualify for settlement. I think in terms of integration, they are saying mainly the English test and the Life in the UK test.
Right.
But they are considering should there be another way to show it. My only feeling is they'll shelve that because it will be too complicated. But yeah, we forgot to mention that volunteering could reduce the baseline qualifying period. Sorry,
exactly.
go on, Natalie.
There's also contribution to the UK, so that will be in terms of salary, but that could also, you know, be what are you doing for your community? That could be, you know, the volunteer element as well.
Public service, working in a public service, they've indicated that might be.
Exactly. And then there's actually residents in the UK, you know, being here physically, living here properly, which we have already for settlement anyway.
So that's the consultation. That's the deadline to respond to some of these proposed changes by the 12th of February. But that is also what we've been talking about are some of the changes we know will come into effect over the course of the next 12 months. As Natalie said, we think April's has been indicated as a possible date for some of these changes, but we don't actually know. And we don't know the nitty-gritty yet because that's yet to come. So that's the 12th of February for the deadline to respond to that. Then on the 25th of February, Natalie, we've got the electronic travel authorization becomes compulsory.
That's right. So it's a strict implementation of the ETA. So that's, if you remember from our previous podcast, it's people who are coming to visit the UK, and there are some nationalities where you would not require a visitor visa to come to the UK. So it's for those nationalities. They're called non-visa nationals, and prior to boarding your plane in the in your whatever country you're exactly outside of the UK. But prior to getting on the plane, you need to be able to show that you've got an electronic travel authorization. So the check-in staff will ask you for it. If you don't have it, you'll be refused boarding. So you must make sure that you get your ETA. And you know, I think we said in the last podcast that it's quite quick. It doesn't take very long. You do it on the gov.uk website. Is it £15, Karma? £16?
I think it is.
I'm not
sure. I think it's
and do it with plenty of time before you travel. And the reason for that is if you are refused your ETA, you'll now need to make a visitor visa application before you can travel to the UK. So don't leave it to, you know, the day of travel or the day before travel. Although I think most people are going to get a decision on their ETA very quickly within a few days or even within a few minutes for some people. If you are refused for whatever reason, and you do need to make a visa application, you need to build in enough time to make that visitor visa application in your home country or wherever you are before you travel to the UK. So do it, you know, a month in advance of your travel if that's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. But obviously if you get to the day before and you haven't, then just do it anyway.
Yes. Yeah.
And there's a good chance you'll get it through. It's basically the government, I think, it wants to keep track of people coming in and out of the country. It's more of a security check process. So they're vetting people. But you'll not ask questions about what you're going to be doing in the UK or anything like that. It's a really quick, short and easy form. And just to recap, what I think we said is that it is specifically for people who are coming to the UK to visit, who until now haven't needed a visitor visa. If you needed a visitor visa before, you will continue to need a visitor visa. So it's only for people coming who didn't previously need a visitor visa and who are coming to visit. And that has been live, but it becomes compulsory. So as of the 25th of February.
Yeah.
And then last year we saw the introduction of the full rollout of eVisas. Well, full rollout to most categories. And I think the government's indicated it's going to carry on transitioning people from paper documents, because some people still get paper stickers in their passports, over to the eVisa. For example, certificate of entitlement, I think, is going electronic this year at some point. Do you know of any others, Natalie?
I think they want to have a full rollout for eVisas in 2026. So at the moment, there are some people who still have paper documents. If you didn't have an eVisa, you can still present your paper document to show that you would be permitted entry into the UK. So you show these when you're checking in. So if you go on holiday outside of the UK, say you go to Spain, when you're coming back from Spain, you need to show at check-in or when you're boarding your flight that you've got a visa to be in the UK. So if you don't have paper documentation, then you would have to already have your sort of digital e-visa in place and be able to show that on the app to be permitted to board. If you have paper documents, you are still allowed to show those paper documents. There was probably lots of people who have got a very old ILR stamp in their passport or vignette in their passport. You know, lots of people get indefinite leave to remain, but then don't go on to citizenship, and that's totally their choice. But if you do have a very old ILR stamp in your passport, if you have just, you know, an ILR vignette, you will need to convert that to an e-visa. If you never had a biometrics residence permit, then you can't just do that through the app. You've got to then make a no time limit application to the Home Office. So that the application form you use is called no time limit. And then the Home Office will basically check that you're someone with indefinite leave to remain and that you haven't lost that indefinite leave to remain since it was granted to you. And then they will give you access to your e-visa. So you've got to basically set up a digital account. Yeah.
So that's, as just to like reiterate, that is now, we think, being rolled out across the board. I mean, anyone could do it, but we think it's going to become compulsory for everyone by the end of 2020.
Yeah. So what they've said, it's quite vague. There are no dates, but they've said they want a full rollout of e-visas in 2026.
Else we think is coming, but we don't have detail on, are changes to how the family route and private life route work. In the immigration white paper of 2025, the government said, and we talked about this last time as well, the government said that it was aiming to reduce the number of people who don't meet the strict requirements of the immigration rules, but who are able to come to the UK or stay in the UK because of their exceptional circumstances. That's the language that we usually use, but it basically means their rights to be with their family, their human rights. And the government had said it was going to unveil a whole new family policy by the end of 2025, but it never came. Thank God.
Yes. Thankfully,
so
I don't want it.
See it coming. I think we'll see something in 2026. I'm sure of it, because they were talking about primary legislation, so a whole new law to deal with this, and that will basically be about how courts and caseworkers interpret human rights, I think, in the context of family life, just aiming to reduce the number of people who stay here. So that's coming. We think more information about that. We mentioned at the start of this podcast that the English language requirement for skilled workers had increased to B2, and that the government's also said that will be rolled out for lots of different visa categories this year, so tougher English tests. Again, don't know when that's coming, but we think it's going to affect everyone.
Yeah.
Another thing we know that's coming, but we don't know exactly when or where, is the implementation of the government's asylum paper, which we talked about last time, which is a split into core protection and work and study protection routes. It means shorter periods of permission to live in the UK for people who are recognised as refugees, having to prove every time they renew their leave that they still are in need of protection. So there's still, for example, if you're from, I don't know, Syria, to show that you couldn't safely go back to Syria, to extend the amount of time it takes for people to qualify for indefinite leave. So currently it's 5 years. The government has said it wants to introduce it to 20 years, which is a shocking increase. And, it would mean that people need to keep showing every 2.5 years for 20 years that they continue to need protection. That there has been indications that if you switch over to this new so-called this protection work and study route, that it might not be as long as that. So that's one small silver lining. And the other thing we're going to see is refugees will only be able to bring their family members to the UK if they're meeting the kind of the mainstream requirements for British citizens and people with indefinite leave, which basically means they need to be earning enough money, more or less.
Yes. Yeah.
A few big other changes that we will see. We're going to, Natalie, last time we were talking, you told us about the introduction of the temporary shortage list for skilled workers. So that's for people who aren't deemed to be working graduate level employment.
That's right.
They don't qualify for a new skilled worker visa unless the government has decided that the UK really needs them. So it's this temporary shortage list.
Yeah.
And tell me what's happening this
year. So I think the temporary shortage list is being kept under review. So there will be a review of the temporary shortage list that will be undertaken. It is being undertaken by the Migration Advisory Committee. We'll see the outcome of that review sometime this year. And what we could see is either roles are being added onto the temporary shortage list, so it could expand, but it could also be diminished. So they can remove roles where they say, actually, that role is no longer, we don't have a skills shortage for that role anymore, or there's no justification to keep that role on the temporary shortage list. So what we're going to see with the temporary shortage list is that roles will come off it and then roles will be added to it potentially. So.
And Natalie, do we know what this means? Like, let's say I'd been given a skilled worker position on a temporary shortage list basis. Now, let's say my leave expired next year. If people are already here, do we know, having on the basis of it being on the temporary shortage list, do we know if they'll be able to extend? Or
if the role is removed from the temporary shortage list, they won't be able to extend. So you won't, because it'll just be a role that you can recruit from the UK.
Oh, that's terrible. Okay. Right.
Yeah, so it's not great for anyone on a temporary shortage list. Yes,
terrible.
yeah, because they have no guarantee, of what's going to happen.
Lies ahead. That's really bad. I wasn't sure that was clear, but that's shocking.
Yeah, it really makes things uncertain for
how people
for anyone on the temporary shortage list. They just have to see it as a whatever the length of the visa is in the UK, that could be the length of time that they're permitted to stay. Yeah.
Okay. We're also going to see this is the final year of the graduate visa and its current form. I mean, it's not a massive change, is it, Natalie?
And they're reducing the length of time, so 18 months, I think, instead of 24 months. Yeah,
from the 1st of January. Although PhD graduates keep their 3 years, and if you've already applied by the end of 2026, you're not going to be affected by the changes. Something else, which again is not really being mentioned because it's like in amidst everything else, the government has indicated, or not given us any more details about making it harder for people to get citizenship. So it wants to, kind of in line with its plan for longer indefinite leave period, it wants to increase the number of years people have to live in the UK before they can qualify for British citizenship. But if you've made contributions to the UK as deemed by the UK government to be a contribution, then you may qualify in a shorter period. But we don't have any details on that.
We don't have any details.
Maybe it may not be, may never happen.
It may look like the sort of pillars that they have for the earned settlement concept.
Yes, they might mirror it. But that will require, that requires a change to primary legislation. So
yes, exactly. It's harder to implement. So what I would say is if you want British citizenship, if you've had ILR for a year, or if you're married to a British national and you've got ILR and British citizenship is important to you, don't sit on your application, put it in as quickly as possible, because, once the rules change, once they tighten up, that's it. You've lost your opportunity. So if you qualify now, or if you're going to qualify, soon, just put your citizenship application in if it's something that is important to you and that you want.
And just finally, Natalie, are there any other changes that you can think of that we're pretty sure this is coming down the pipeline in 2026, or do you think we've gone over ones?
I think maybe we didn't touch upon it, but just dependents having their English language assessed as well. So there are isn't that part of it? Yes. So unless you're coming to the UK as the spouse or the partner of a British national, someone settled in the UK, usually as a dependent, the Home Office aren't interested in whether or not you can speak English. But what they've identified is that dependents are actually form quite a large part of the statistics for migration, family members joining the main applicant, and what they want is for dependents to be able to show integration into the UK or have an ability to integrate into the UK. So I think this must be the thinking behind introducing an English language level for dependents. So it could be that we're going to see that as part of entry clearance applications or as part of switching applications. Dependents are going to need to show that they've got a certain level of English. And
I think that's actually, we didn't say this, but that's also connected to the earned settlement, that you will no longer just be able to qualify on the basis of being someone's, like the dependent of a skilled worker, dependent of a global talent holder. People need to show, dependents will now need to show contributions in their own right, which ties in with what you were saying about the English language.
Exactly, which is something which is completely non-existent at the moment for dependents. You know, the Home Office has never really been that interested in what they've been doing. You know, you just need to show that you have been in the UK and that you've been abiding by all of our laws. But now they're going to be interested in what are the dependents' contributions to the UK, how much have they earned, you know, what have they been doing here? So much more focus on each applicant who's applying to settle in the UK.
So I think we'll wrap it up there. Just key final reminder, respond to the consultation by the 12th of February if you can. If you qualify for indefinite leave now or citizenship and it's something you want to apply for, don't lose any time. We've got a lot of change in the pipelines. And I think that's it for now. So we'll be back again in a few weeks to explore another issue. Thanks, Natalie, for joining me.
Thanks, Karma. It's been fun, despite the content.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I'm saying this all the time. Okay, thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.